Hello and welcome to another episode of our Karak Chat podcast.
An FTI Consulting podcast where we talk about where we think with a woman in construction.
We are your host. I am Nisreen,
And I'm Kate.
and in today's episode we have a special guest, Courtney Rothery from CMS.
Hello, thanks for having
Hello,
me.
we're really excited to have you with us.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Kate. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
In today's episode, which we have titled Construction Wisdom, we will exploring the construction industry in the region, drawing from our guest extensive experience and our experience, we will be highlighting the key lesson learned.
And just before we'll dive in our very interesting topic, I would like to put a spotlight to our guests. Courtney definitely has a very impressive career. She's in Middle East from 2008. And she's English qualified lawyer. She has more than 14 years experience in the Middle East, and she was involved in various disputes, major construction, infrastructure, power energy project. By way of example, we can call two major airports in the Middle East, metro project, power and energy project, and so on. And I have to say, this is very important. It's similar, like Nisreen and I do in our careers. You're not only involved in dispute, you also support your client and before they will step in the dispute on day-to-day activities. This is very impressive for you. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's
Yeah,
really lovely
indeed,
to be here.
very impressive career, Courtney, already, and we are very happy to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And let's begin. I will start probably with my common line here. We are women in construction in the Middle East. And every one of us has their own stories on the reasons and ideas why we decided to be here in the Middle East. By way of example, I'm a civil engineer. 2 years after getting my degree, I wanted to explore more and get more, and decision was made where to go. It was Dubai because of the impressive construction project which was going on and was well known worldwide. And what about you? What bring you here in the Middle East?
Well, I wish I could say my move to the region was as well thought out as UK, but if I'm honest, it wasn't. I moved in 2008. I'd qualified as a lawyer, as you say, in England in 2007. And my plan a year into qualification was to take a bit of time out, to visit some friends here, to maybe use it as a launch pad to travel. So I arrived in 2008. At that time, the global economic crisis was well underway in the rest of the world towards the West, so Europe and America. And when I arrived in Dubai, it hadn't kind of quite hit. Everyone was still at brunch. Everyone was still popping the champagne. So there was a lot of it was a bit of a strangeness having come from England and Europe. But within a matter of months of me arriving, the recession did hit. So it was I saw that change happen. Looking back, it almost felt like it happened overnight. You know, friends were losing jobs, big projects were being cancelled, construction sites that you drove past and you saw things moving around literally came to a halt. So the plan was to take time off, but because of the nature of the economy and the market at the time, it was really a case of anybody who had kind of litigation background, disputes background, got offered jobs, and there were so many different jobs, opportunities that I decided to work when that hadn't been part of the plan. And yeah, like the rest is history, as they say. 2008, the plan was to kind of stay here for 6 months, a year, and 16 years later, here I am. So
I think that's very interesting story. And also, I think we heard from our guests all the time, they always like a plan to come for maybe 1 year, 6 months.
3 years.
3 years in case,
Yeah.
and then just end up just staying for a really long time. And actually, this take me to another question, which is like related to like just a change in plan. What did you want to be when you were a child? Have you always wanted to be a lawyer, and if you are not in law now, what else you would like to do?
well, I definitely didn't always want to be a lawyer. It was a bit of a default decision, to be honest. I never knew what I wanted to do. I liked kind of a lot of different things growing up, and it was my mum who often said to me, you know, you like reading. Why don't you be a lawyer if you don't know the answer? You just look it up in a book. It's, you know, what it's easy peasy. I went to university to study a degree in business, just again because I was trying to kind of keep things quite general, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think I must have lasted maximum a week. And I just didn't like it. I thought, oh, this is terrible. This is not for me. I'm not going to enjoy this. And through meeting a friend who was studying law, managed to talk my way on to the law degree after having a meeting with the dean of the law school, and kind of did the law degree, enjoyed that, but still didn't see myself as necessarily being a lawyer. Thought it would give me other options. Finished my degree, and then in England at the time you did a training contract, which was 2 years. And it was only when I started doing the training contract that the job started to make sense to me. Meeting people, hearing their stories, understanding that there was a problem that had to be solved, and often needing a bit of creativity to solve that problem. That's when it all started to come together, and I kind of seen that actually that was a really good job for me that I would fit into. So it was a default, but I'm not sure what else I would have done looking back. The only other thing, maybe, like, I love to read, so maybe something, you know, editorial or an author of, or if I could be creative enough. But yeah.
Very interesting.
But did you have like any, like for example, when I was really, really young, as Kate knows now, so I was playing basketball, and I thought I just said I will be a professional basketball till 19, and then I start my university, and just the reality hit me, and I know that I needed to choose between basketball and civil engineering, which is like really different things to do. Did you have like any hobbies or something like really interest you when you were young?
I mean, not as interesting as basketball, I've got to be honest. I played netball, and I always did a lot of sports. So yeah, running and cross country and netball and things like that. But for me, it was always reading. So to an extent, I guess it makes sense because I love reading, and there's so much reading involved in being a lawyer. So it's to that extent, I guess it makes sense. But yeah, you definitely win with the basketball
and
background.
I think also like we were also talking about it before. Is it strange? Like sometimes you need really to choose what do you want to do in your lives from very early age, like age of 17 or 18.
It's way too young.
Yeah.
And I think I will be more confident now with my children, saying to them not to put themselves under pressure to pick a career. I mean, it's easier now to say that there's no such thing as a lifelong career. You can kind of change, and your career can evolve, and you can take on different roles as you get older. But when I was deciding, it was still very much a case of you got to 16 and it was like, right, decide what you want to do for the rest of your life, which it's not realistic, is it?
Yeah, but I think it's quite common. Many of us changing our careers paths. It's a young age if you even now decided to choose and study something else. Like, for example, I'm from Belarus, and it's a post-Soviet country, so it's quite common to be an engineer. In my family, we have a joke because all of us are engineers. You can drop us in the forest, and we can build town for you. so yes, and now slightly, I still have a civil engineering background and involved in construction, but after my degree in construction law and arbitration, it's the same background, but it have changed to my studies to a little bit different expertise, and made me exposed from less technical exposure to more legal exposure. So it's quite interesting. You always can find the ways how to change even like your initial career path to something else which you like more. Yeah. And this is will lead me to the question which I wanted to ask you, because when you're studying law, you open to so many different directions. It can be commercial and construction law, obviously. And construction industry is so demanding, it's so challenging and male-dominating. And why did you decide to be a construction law practitioner, and especially here in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not something that I necessarily chose. When I was doing my training contract, I very much enjoyed the contentious seats, so specialising in litigation, as it was in England, was an obvious choice for me. I found that much more interesting than the non-contentious side of law. And it was just a case of when I came here, the nature of the market in 2008, when I started working here, 2009, there were so many disputes. And I mean, I guess the story goes that I started, I spent a year working in-house in a real estate company, and that was kind of my first job in the region, and realised that I needed to get back into contentious work and disputes work. There wasn't enough disputes in the real estate company. And then I moved to work for a local boutique firm and was working mostly on local court matters and working with local advocates to manage the cases there. And that allowed me to understand a lot about the local court process here and how they relied on various provisions of the civil code and the commercial code to plead the claims and the defences. And because I was working on disputes, I got involved in arbitrations, and then what came with that was the construction disputes. And it was really just getting a taste of that made me realise that I was enjoying it. I didn't have any training at that time. It was a case of reading FIDIC, reading the commentary to FIDIC, reading everything you could get your hands on, construction related, knowing it inside out, speaking to the clients, understanding the contracts, understanding the projects. And so kind of slowly getting more and more heavily involved. And then once I realised how much I was enjoying it, that's when I decided I'm going to try and get a position in a disputes team that did a lot more construction disputes work. So it was 2011 when I moved to work for, the firm was called Lawrence Graham, and that became Rag Lawrence Graham, and then they became Gowling. They are Gowling WLG as they are now. And I was working with their disputes team, doing primarily construction disputes and international arbitration for about 8 years. But yeah, it was an evolution, so to speak, because it was just a case of doing disputes, but I was kind of doing all kinds of disputes and then honing in on the arbitration and the construction disputes. Just it evolved.
Yeah, and I think that's also lead us to the subject which is very close to our heart, women in construction.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to see more women getting involved and thriving in our industry? And also, given your extensive experience in the region, what are the key insight or observation you can give us from your experience?
For me, it's all about diversity of ideas and perspectives. So I've worked with lots of brilliant male lawyers, male experts, male clients, and they've all been very impressive. But I've also been very aware of the fact that I and other members of the team who are female have been able to give ideas, give perspectives in any given situation that the men just don't come up with, just because we think differently, we have different ideas about things, we just look at the world differently, we're just different creatures, so to speak. So it's just so important to develop critical thinking, that you have women as part of any team, and to make sure you get the best ideas and the best perspectives on everything. You've got to have women.
I think we had a similar discussion as well in our previous episode, because as you said, in general, we have different perspective. So it's very important, as you said, to include women. And we were talking about, it's very important specifically for women to be involved in the senior level as well.
Yeah.
And as you said, become part of the decision making.
Yeah, yeah. I think the risk with not having women as part of the team is that, as I say, it's not going to foster critical thinking, but it's more likely to foster groupthink. And so you've got, a bunch of men, and they might be brilliant men, and they might be really good at what they do, but it might be that just that one idea or that one perspective that only a woman can give, that you'll miss out on if you don't have women in the senior team making those key decisions.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm very much agree. And you a very long time in the Middle East. Myself here for 10 years already. And I have to say, in the past decade, I have seen so much changes, especially in the construction. I can see more and more engineers, more and more experts like Nisreen, myself, construction lawyer like yourself. And notwithstanding the challenges and dynamic of this industry, so what do you think in terms of challenges? What are the most common challenges you think the females facing in construction industries, and if any? Okay. And also, what do you think? How we can attract more females in the industry, and is it most important how we can retain those impressive women who decided to step in the construction industry, so to be there longer?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the challenge is maybe for me less so because I have been here longer and I've seen things for a longer period of time. So if I walk into a meeting, a networking event, anything where it's kind of a predominantly male environment, I'm less nervous or less anxious than maybe younger women in the team.
Mm-hmm.
I think that must be daunting if you're a junior female in the industry and you walk into a meeting or you walk into a presentation and it's kind of the room's just full of men. And I remember going to lots of meetings at the start of when I first moved to the region, and it would be 10, 15 men, and it would be time after time of going in there as the only woman, and you just it's hard to not be intimidated, I suppose, to an extent in that environment, because naturally when women are together, it feels a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels a bit easier and it just feels a bit more natural. So I suppose that's the biggest challenge, is not being daunted by it, having the confidence to walk into that environment and know that everything you say counts just as much, if not more, than some of the male perspectives. And then retention, I mean, it's hard not to always fall back on the retention point when it comes to being the point about working as a mother, because I think that, I mean, that's particularly the way I see it. I'm a working mum. I've got 3 young children at home. It is difficult to always manage balancing the children and your responsibilities at home with your responsibilities at work. And it's well known, or it's widely known, that a lot of women leave the profession after having children because it just becomes too difficult to juggle everything. So I suppose my view on retention would be to ensure that the industry is supportive as possible to both women who are planning to have children, in the process of having children, and then afterwards when they've had children. I'm really lucky that I work for a firm that is hugely supportive, and I work for male partners who've always been very supportive of me in my career and how I make that work. And I am very lucky, but I'm conscious that I'm lucky and that not all women have the same luxury as I do.
I think that's also a very mutual point. We heard as well from all our guests that I think, as you said, after giving birth and having a baby, I think it's sometimes very hard to come back. And also I think that's what, also from what we heard from our guests, I think that is the common reason why most of female will be, not even in construction, I think in general, you will see less female in seniority level. But as you said, and as we discussed before as well, I think just to try to have better policy, better support after this period to come back to work, and just encourage female that it's okay, you could come back to work. Because also we heard a lot of story that it's very hard to come back to work after being 1 or 2 years out of work.
Yeah, it's daunting when you've even had a shorter period of maternity leave. The idea of being able to use your brain in that way again, you think, oh, am I even going to be able to speak halfway intelligently about anything that I thought I knew really well beforehand? So it is, and it's not easy. But yeah, having that support network, having men who are champions for women, and having females in that environment who are also mothers is the only way you're going to be able to make sure that women can go through that process and have the confidence they need to come back. But it's much more common now than it was,
Yeah.
even 10 years ago. There's so many working mums and working as partners as well. So things are changing.
It's absolutely true, and also it's important. You mentioned about networking. It's important that you know that you're not only one. You know that many of people with a similar position, with a similar problem. It's important to say yes. It's challenging. It's not only you struggling. It's very important to understand that it's not easy. Not because you're doing something wrong. It's not easy just because it's really hard. So this is important to acknowledge that this is challenging. This is important to acknowledge. So I think it's applicable to very much everyone. We're trying to perform. We're trying to show our best in every day at work. And when you become a mom, you're trying to perform your very best at work. You're trying to perform your very best at home. This is where the burn happening, and this is very, very important. That when you have a supported home, supported work, to not to stuck in this perceptions, like just to keep doing as much as you can, and like to get as much support as you can. It's okay to get support. It's okay to take help.
Yeah, I
It's
think
okay
that's
to
also important,
acknowledge.
because sometimes you just, especially us women, we like to do everything by ourselves and be, like just perfect. So it's important, as Kate said, just it's okay if you want some support, and it's okay if sometimes perform 80 and 90%. And actually, I had like similar story. What did you say about like maybe a long time ago now, when you go to meeting or some social events, you will be the only female. And now time it changed, which I think it's like I could relate to this, because when I started my career in the expert works as well, it was like now maybe 10, 11 years ago. So I just finished my master's in London in construction management. And actually my first job was in like boutique expert work. And I was the only technical person, like female, working on, delay cases, arbitration. And it was like really intimidating at the beginning. Especially, like even not also, maybe it's perspective of age as well. So female and young female. So like even when there is a break, you'll see all of them having like mutual conversation. And I was like, I'm not really interested in this topic, but maybe I need to participate just to be part of it. While now, and we are very proudly in FTI, we have, I think, maybe around 8 or 9 female experts between quantum and delay, which is like, as you say, it's like we can see now the changes already happening, which is we are very proud of.
And talk about expertise, I will probably move our conversation to the construction wisdom part, and because we need to get your wisdom on the construction on the construction industry, because we are here in Dubai in the Middle East, and we see so many construction disputes happening. And you have such an extensive experience here in the Middle East on the major projects. So what do you think from the contractual and legal perspective? What's the most common issues happening in construction disputes?
I guess the most common issues that we see time and time again, it's generally a lack of understanding of the legal basis of the claim. And so clients coming to us with claims that they think are ready to be presented to arbitration, or they want to file an arbitration, and there's just not been enough time spent considering the legal basis for the claims. And it all boils down to what's in the contract and what's the governing law of the contract. And so being able to identify the legal basis for the claim and what you're relying on, what you have to do to prove your entitlement is so crucial. And it's just very often the case that we get claims which are kind of not properly developed, and we have to spend time trying to kind of explain that how they need to be developed in order to establish the entitlement. And then I guess the other issue is the records and the record keeping. Disputes lawyers are always really keen to see the contemporaneous records, so the records that were prepared at the time of any event or the other circumstances. And naturally, to some extent, when the project has been underway, when the works are being performed, and the project correspondence, the emails, the meeting minutes are being prepared, there's a level of understanding between everybody involved in the works and the people on site as to what's happening and why it's happening. And so that level of detail isn't always included in the records. And when we review the records and we can see that, you know, actions were being taken, decisions were being made, but we don't understand, or we can't see from the records what the basis of those decisions or actions were, and that the full story isn't there. Sometimes you can piece everything together when you take everything as a whole, but sometimes you review the documents and the records, and there's so much missing in terms of facts. So being able to understand what the facts are and the story behind any dispute, so that you can kind of apply the contract and the law to that is something that we have to spend time with clients to understand.
Thanks, Nisreen and I quite often in the same situation. We are trying to dig out through the records to prepare the best claim support for our clients. And I think you touch upon this, like what do you think about early involvement? How important it is for the positive dispute resolution?
I mean, the earlier the better. I'm always going to say, I mean, you mentioned my at the start that I do project counsel work. I mean, that I guess that's the ideal. I think having somebody who's there during when the works are being performed and executed, who understands the contract inside out and can tell you exactly what you need to do in any given situation in order to establish your entitlement to most often an extension of time or a variation, and then additional costs that flow from those things. That is the ideal. And if you can have clients that have got the budget to have a project counsel, somebody in a project counsel role, then that really is money well spent, because it just allows those project records, the documents, the claims to be prepared in such a way that later on all the work has been done. It's all there. It's nicely developed and drafted and packaged. If that's not possible, or it hasn't been, there hasn't been somebody in that kind of project counsel role assisting with developing the claims during the works, the next best thing I think is definitely at the stage where you know you have claim, and there's a chance you might be able to settle it. You're hopeful, but definitely take input from your legal advisor as to the legal basis of the claims as early as possible, because I mean, the legal basis, I'm going to say this, I'm a lawyer, but it's the bedrock to any claim. If you haven't got a legal basis to prove an entitlement to claim, then it doesn't matter how good the evidence is elsewhere. It doesn't matter how good your time impact analysis is, or your windows analysis, or anything else. If there's no legal basis, then everything else will fail. So get that opinion as soon as possible, and then use that as the foundation and build everything up from there, I would say. Because that is a good way to structure a claim, is to understand the legal basis, and then put all the other pieces in place above that.
I think I was about to ask you the same question, but I think you already answered that. You already gave us very valuable advice for the client and contractor when they find themselves in dispute, and also in early stages of dispute. From your experience, have you had any successful case or experience with early dispute resolution? Because from my experience, I don't know about Kate as well, we tried a lot, we tried hard to avoid the dispute stage, like arbitration, adjudication, litigation. But in most of time, I think the party don't want to sit together and try to resolve the dispute.
Yeah, I mean, the situations where I've seen early dispute resolution or avoidance of an arbitration or any legal proceedings work best are always when the parties understand their claims and the other side's position, whether it's a claim or a defence, like when they have the best understanding and they want to understand. Because it's only once you understand your claim and the legal basis for your claim and the other side's position and their defence, and depending on whether you're the claimant or the defendant, once you understand the strengths and weaknesses of the claims and the warts and all, not just the bits you want to understand and the bits that you want to focus on, but when you understand everything as a whole, that's the only time I think you can really enter settlement discussions and really understand how far you need to move, how far you need to compromise. It's very common that you'll get, I guess, claimant contractors coming in and they might have worked on a project for years. They've been discussing their claims for several years. They have a figure in their head, and that's the figure they want to settle on. And they might go away to settlement discussions and think to an extent, well, this is how much I'm prepared to move. But understanding what's at risk, which parts of the claims have really got difficulties because there's no legal basis perhaps, or because there are no documents, because there's a weakness in the evidence, because you've got a crucial witness who was there at the time 5 years ago, but they are long gone and we can't locate them. Once you understand everything as a whole, that's when you can enter a settlement discussion and really understand how far you need to move. So I think that's when it works the best. Yeah, and that's why it comes back
I think that's really also what we see also in a lot of our day-to-day work. It's very important to manage the high expectation of the client. And now, which is I think is really good, that most of our client doesn't wait till the dispute stage or arbitration stage, and they come in advance and they ask us to provide our independent advisory report or just really to analyze their position as it is. Because sometimes, as you say as well, if you work on the project for long of time, you might just think that is what's happening, that is correct. It's important to have some external view.
I can't agree more. Independent opinion is very important because sometimes you drag so much in a dispute, see it straight, you're a little bit blur, and you need someone from the consultancy, explain to you all risks, all numbers, all possibilities, strengths of your evidence, as you said. So yeah, I'm talking from quantum perspective from my side. So yeah, all numbers too, because you claim you want to get certain amount of money at the end of the day to recover your losses or bring you back in your position when you was before dispute happened. So, and you need to be realistic because whenever you will get to dispute, and on top of your expectation which you would like to get, there will be also a big amount of other expenses which you will spend just to get this realistic number which will be decided by the tribunal. So yeah, it's very, 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 very important. And I also from quantum perspective, I have a question to you. Nisreen is a delay expert, I'm a quantum expert. And I know it's a part of our job, but quite it's not day-to-day of our job. We're looking at a lot of claims and dispute, and which are related to delay overruns, to cost overruns. Is there any advice you can give to them, our listeners, which can help them just to, from legal and contractual perspective, to avoid these overruns, just to secure their position for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, again, it comes back to understanding your contract as well as you possibly can. We still see clients who've spent time entering into a contract and then they get the work and naturally the head's down, they're trying to get the work done, and the contract just gets forgotten about, and there's kind of a vague understanding that there's some provisions in the contract that give them entitlement to claim something. And they often come to us and say, well, there was a period of delay, there was an over 2 years, and then there were all these costs, and we've got this extension of time claim, and then we've got all these cost claims. And there's this, they seem to kind of think that there's an automatic entitlement if they can prove an extension of time, that they automatically get costs. And what's important to remember always is that read your contract and understand what entitlements it gives you to make a claim. The entitlement to claim an extension of time is separate to the entitlement to claim costs. They're not linked. The two are completely separate. So if you're claiming time, look at the provisions which allow you to claim money and understand what you have to do for the time claim and to make the claim for additional costs, and set those out. So we talked about the project counsel rule, which is helpful, but if you haven't got that, other things that have worked really well for some of our clients are when we've been able to give them a document, give them something that allows them to understand the contractual provisions in an easily digestible format. So that might be in the form of a playbook that identifies all the contractual provisions that they can rely on and what they have to do to satisfy the contract in order to make a claim. It might be in the form of a flowchart. It might be in the form of a checklist, something that they can use that they can say on day to day as they're performing the works. Okay, if this circumstance or this event arises, what do we need to do to fulfill our contractual obligations? Tick, tick, tick. And that can be really helpful during the course of the works. But as I say, crucially understanding that the two are not linked, they're separate. Time does not equal money. It might equal money, but you have to look at your contract and you have to understand the basis of your claims.
Yeah, I think we see this instance a lot in our day-to-day work as well. That's some client automatically thinks they have both entitlement if they have extension of time entitlement. And I think this also lead me to another question. As female experts, we trying and now there is a lot of movement to have more female experts involved in the construction industry. And since the ERA pledge launched in 2015, have you seen any significant changes in the industry?
So I've started to see them more recently. I think for at least 4 or 5 years after the pledge, to be totally honest, I didn't see that much practical change. But in the last 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years, I've started to see changes. And the last 3 international arbitrations I was involved in, there were female arbitrators on the panel and 1 female chairperson. So I think the changes are coming. I don't know whether they've taken a while to you see those changes everywhere, but yeah, it is starting to change. And definitely, 16 years ago, I would never have seen a female expert on the list of candidates, to be totally honest. It just didn't happen. It was always just all men. But again, now there's so many more excellent female experts, and so the female candidates are much more prevalent on the lists of candidates that we see. So it will continue to, it has to continue to change. But it's definitely heading in the right direction.
It's very good because Nisreen and I are experts here, so we're glad to see these changes. But there are much more female experts in the Middle East, and they're facing some challenging to get their first appointment and so on. As everywhere, the first appointment to be an arbitrator is the first big case in everything. But what advice can you give to the young construction expert who trying to get in this very, very demanding career path, and how to raise the profile, how to get your first appointment, how to get this particular very interesting role?
I think just focus on producing excellent work. For me, I see it all the time that there's always a hesitation on the bigger cases in particular to appoint an expert who hasn't yet had that experience of being cross-examined, and clients feel like they're taking a big risk and it's going to backfire. But I've also seen very experienced male experts be appointed to avoid that situation of there being a risk, and clients be disappointed in their performance, to be totally honest. So for me, as long as an expert is hardworking, which you will know from the references you take, and they're going to do a good job with the report, and as long as they know that report inside out, there shouldn't be any risks involved in the cross-examination. So I think younger experts just work hard, produce good work, and then those opportunities will come. And I personally would always be happy to say to a client that, you know, appointing an expert who hasn't been cross-examined, but we know is a hard worker, that we know has got great experience, all other things being equal, they're probably going to be more hungry, more eager to impress you, and more likely to do an excellent job of on this project to get those experiences more. So I think it's not quite the risk that it's perceived to be.
I have to say we had such a positive example in our company. One of my colleagues had his very, very first appointment, and the case was very, very demanding, but it ended up as a success. And it was quite unusual setting up, and they end up hiring the third expert to make an opinion on the two expert reports. And outcome came as like a very impressive, and it was a delay expert report. So I saw how much energy and effort he put it in, just because he trying it. And you're absolutely right. When we're trying to do something for the first time, we're trying to impress, we're trying to push it for extra mile to make an over delivery, probably, because it's very important, because it's you have to prove yourself, you have to impress the tribunal, and you have to help the tribunal at the end of the day. And if you did your job well, so it's all good. So so it's a great thing.
Yeah, and I think also I will add, apart from you having your first appointment, like me and Kate, we have not had our first appointment yet, but we've been involved in arbitration, procedure, hearing, other dispute resolution form, like adjudication, litigation for 10, 11 years. So I think most of the experts, they have really long and extensive experience, but maybe we did not have, or they did not have the chance to just have this first appointment. And I think also in FTI, we try hard to push this first appointment, and also we try to push the inclusion. But as you said, in the right time and in the right because of our experience, not because we are female.
Yeah, not just to tick a box.
Yeah, exactly. You should not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the chicken and egg term gets bandied about a lot, but it's, if you have spent the time you need to spend on your report, and if you know your report well and it's your work, then there shouldn't be any issue. So yeah, I feel like I do feel for experts when they're kind of hungry for that first appointment, but you need a client to take a risk, so to speak. But yeah, I would always be kind of happy to tell a client that if that person has got the right experience and the right understanding of your dispute, and we know that they're going to do a good job on the report, then it really shouldn't be a risk that it's perceived to be.
It was very interesting. Thank you, Courtney. And thinking about your career, you are in such a challenging environment in the construction industry. And, you're trying to tackle such an pressing disputes and claim support and everything. Do you have a free time at all? Because this is what we are, Nisreen and I, struggling from time to time. And if you genuinely do, how do you spend it here in the Middle East?
Yeah, not much, if I'm honest. I have 3 small children at home, so I know it's a phase that will pass, but it's definitely a phase where if I'm not working, I'm with the kids, and if I'm not with the kids, I'm working. And the biggest challenge is being present in either, because it's very often I'll be sitting with my youngest children and playing dinosaurs or animals or something, and my mind's not really there. I'm thinking about something else, an argument that's being developed, or a contract, something else I want to check in that contract, or so yeah, being present in either is important. But yeah, free time, there just isn't very much of that at the moment. I am a big reader. I love reading, and if I can manage 20-30 minutes at the end of every day before I pass out reading, then I am a happy bunny, which is too much of amusement of my friends, because they kind of say, well, you spend all day reading, you still want to do more. It is different.
What book novels. Do you have on your nightstand at the moment?
So at the moment I'm reading How to Kill Your Family, which a friend recommended to me. And I did tell my husband it's not your immediate family, So don't worry. But yeah, anything kind of switch off material is good.
It's very good. I'm using sports, to be honest, like a survival mode. So like to go to Machu Picchu without the phone. It's a lot. Like when
that's much more
you really
impressive.
forget about anything which is trouble you at work. You just want to like climb in to survive, to catch up your breath because of lack of oxygen and everything. So yeah, so everyone has their own ways, and I'm glad that, and I think it's important to switch off from time to time.
I think for me, I'm more like Courtney. So if I want to switch off, I literally will be like just building strange Lego stuff or puzzles with Maxi, or just reading stories and try to switch off. And we're reading very funny stories recently, but I will not mention the title of the story.
Oh my God.
It's a bit funny. So really, we arrived to the end of our episode. Courtney, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for
We
having
really
me. It was
enjoyed our
lovely.
conversation. We covered a lot of ground today, but I think before we let you go, do you have any like key takeaway point you would like our listener to remember after this episode?
Oh, it's hard not to give a boring legal one, but it is read your contract, understand your contract, and yeah, if something's not clear, take advice on the legal basis for your claims, because everything will flow from there. And if there's problems with the legal basis of the claims, then everything will be a problem and start to fall apart. So don't put it away in a drawer and forget about it. Read it and take advice from people who you trust.
Thank you, Courtney. It was very helpful, and I think I really much enjoyed this time with you. It was very great.
Thank you so much again to be with us. We really enjoyed our time with you.
Thank you so much.
See you next time. Bye bye.